All right. Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks Philly Sports. Of course, we're here live this time. Partnered up with Heat Ratio Sports as well. I got my man Phil Stiefel back on the show. You guys remember him, Beard of Knowledge on Twitter, all about the birds at AAT Birds on Twitter. Bunch of my guys over there, always talking good stuff with the birds. Of course, we're back here live today. We'll hop right into it. We're getting close to game time, for the not for the Eagles, but around the league. And I won't hold you guys longer than that, of course. So we'll dive right in, Phil. I guess we may as well start. The elephant in the room, right? Adam Schefter comes out with the report game day. It seems like it's a weekly thing. For mainstream sports media to chime in on Philadelphia and the quarterback situation. We talked about it off there a little bit. It's a little obvious. I mean, it's lazy news. I feel like it's lazy reporting. Your thoughts?
I mean, obviously, nobody wants to be a backup, but there has to be backups, obviously, but nobody of Carson Wentz's stature, of his skill set, wants to be a backup. It's just lazy reporting. Yes, I literally was just about to get started in a thing with my boy Jason Sullivan on Twitter because he said, he made a good point. You got to work and earn that starting role. And yes, Carson Wentz has earned the demotion this year.
Yeah.
If you heard Carson come out and say, I'm okay being the backup, that just tells you everything you need to know about him. So obviously he wants to be the starter. He's not going to just come out and say, yeah, cool, I'll earn my $100 million and sit on the bench. That's not what you want in a football player. Even Nate Sudfeld wants to be a starter in the NFL, and he hasn't even dressed since week one.
Exactly. And I think it's just, we pointed at it. It's lazy news. It's quite honestly, it's played out. I mean, We know that. I mean, Carson hasn't played well. We know that. Jalen Hurts deserves a shot. We know that. And, Carson's not going to be happy about it. I mean, he probably – just like, the report a couple weeks ago, Carson wasn't happy about, the original pick of Jalen. Duh. It doesn't – why would you? No, nobody would.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers was not happy with the Jordan Love pick. But you don't hear stories about that coming out. He's going out and see, that's where I think that's where the problem is. Aaron Rodgers didn't like the pick. Aaron Rodgers is going out and having an MVP season. Carson Wentz didn't like the pick, and Carson Wentz had probably his worst, season to date ever as a football player. Period. Probably going back to high school or Pee Wee or whatever. So
back to high school, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's just. It's played out, and let's just enjoy the game today. Let's get ready to play the Cardinals and enjoy Jalen Hurts. Let's see what Jalen Hurts has. I'm interested to see today, and we can get into Jalen Hurts and how we think he's going to do today against the Cardinals defense. Going up against a powerhouse offense they haven't been as hot as you would expect lately, but our secondary is so beat up that they're going to score points today. What can we expect out of Jalen Hurts today? These defenses are going to adjust. They're going to see how we played against New Orleans last week. He had 18 carries, 18 attempts. We kind of controlled the game with the run game. You see, now my problem, I guess, I expected the Saints to prepare for that. I expected them to at least stop the run.
Mm-hmm.
But, I would expect the Cardinals are going to pack the box today as well. You know what I mean? Make Jalen Hurts make some throws downfield. Make him show you that he can make throws down the field, before you're going to just keep giving up rush yard, 10 yards of carry. So I expect the Cardinals defense to adjust. They had that pass rush going last week. Hassan Reddick has been playing out of his mind.
It's funny, real quick. You keep up there in a second. Yeah. There was a lot of talk that the Cardinals wanted to get rid of Reddick at the beginning of the year.
No,
I bet you they're happy they kept. I mean, there was talk that the Eagles were looking to bring him in, and everything.
And we should have definitely, at least tried, but because he is a homemade product. But
Temple boy right there.
That's a Temple boy. We hate bringing in Temple boys. We didn't want to do Robbie Anderson either, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
What are you expecting out of Jalen Hurts today? Do you expect him to have to throw more?
Yeah, I do expect him to have to throw more, obviously, because they're gonna finally have some tape on Jalen Hurts. Going into the Saints game, all they had was how many plays was he really in the first 12 games of the year. Exactly. 2 plays a game here, 1 play a game here. They were all runs. He threw the ball twice, I think, all year before that. So there really was no tape on him. They really had no idea what the Eagles' offense was going to look like with Jalen Hurts. And, there's a lot of talk that the Saints were like the top defense. But if you really look at the Saints' schedule, they really haven't played too many really top-tier offenses. So maybe they were a little overrated as well. And, I expect Jalen Hurts to come out today. I expect the Cardinals to have a real game plan to shut what they did last week down. Right. Easily. They're going to stack the box, like you said, against Sanders and Hurts. Those RPOs, they're not going to be as open this week, at least at first. So that's really how successful Jalen Hurts is today is really going to come down to Doug Peterson and the play calling and the scheming of what they're going to do, because he's going to have to scheme somebody open. Hurts is going to have to be smart enough to hit those hot routes on wide receivers. It's not going to be run. It's going to be pass, So, I expect to see him look for Boston Scott, Miles Sanders out of the backfield, a lot of tight end, quick dump offs to tight ends. Everybody knows I love Greg Ward, not really, but a lot of short little passes to Greg Ward. Bubble screens to Reagor, which we've seen a lot of now in the last week and all. So I expect that kind of stuff. I think the over-under was like 205 passing yards for Hurts.
Yeah.
So to be competitive this week, you're probably going to have to see Jalen Hurts go over that 200-yard passing mark to actually be competitive, in my opinion, because like I said, the run's just not going to be there.
Yeah. And I took the over on that just for the same reason. I felt like they're going to pack it in on the run. So I did take the over on the passing yards for Jalen Hurts today. I'm in the same boat as you. I just think, I guess what I really think is we'll really find out about Jalen Hurts as a quarterback today. I know it's young. He's a young guy. It's not going to be the end of the world if he has a terrible game today. It will be in Philly, but it won't be in reality.
So can you imagine if he has to get benched this game and Carson Wentz has to come in and lead the victory? I mean, it's already been a mess on social media the last couple of weeks. That would just throw everything all over the place.
Exactly. So, if he comes out and they force him to throw today, he has a rough time. It doesn't mean it's the end of the road for Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's a young guy. He's a rookie. He deserves some time to grow as well. So, I think we'll find out about him, but overall he'll be forced into, passing the ball today and going down the field. I think they're going to really just pack it in the box today. How do you feel like the rest of the season is about to play out? Like, what is your gut feeling on how these 3 games are about to go?
I mean, I really don't know at this point. Today is the key. Because I kind of feel like what we see, win or lose, and I know you want to get into whether they should make the playoffs or not, or worry about draft position later. But win or lose today, we still technically control, our own destiny to an extent. So, yes, right there. My wife's birthday present right there, up in the background there.
Back there too, man. Pretty dope.
Love it. Love that right there. Totally threw me off. So yeah, win or lose today, we win the next 2 weeks.
Right.
We can still make the playoffs. So I expect, the season to play out just the same way as I want for the keys to the game and everything else. I want to see progress.
Yeah.
If Jalen Hurts takes another step forward today, I could see the season playing out where we make a playoff run. Now, if Jalen Hurts craps the bed, I don't know. I mean? Right. It's hard to tell how the season's going to play out because there's still so many unknown. We don't know what Jalen Hurts is going to be like when he's forced to pass the ball like he's going to be today. We don't know if Doug Peterson is going to be able to make the right play calls to, to make that happen, or is he going to just stick with what worked last week and not make the adjustments? He's done that all year. He hasn't made the adjustments, for Carson Wentz. So I don't know.
Yeah, no,
I can't answer your question because I have no idea.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, man. It's a big ass mystery, and even the matchups are just so like I don't know. Like this Cardinals team today, it's weird. Coming into this game, I would have way more confidence if we did have like a Darius Slay, Rodney McLeod, any of those guys in the secondary. We got some unknowns coming in today. Of course, they're talking about Jalen Mills is going to be following DeAndre Hopkins around. So good luck with that. Yeah. The good thing about that matchup, I would say, is that, he usually does bad against speed guys. He gets burnt on the double moves, that type of thing. And DeAndre Hopkins is more, diabolical. He gets you with his route running. He has great hands. So he can still get, cooked up, I'm sure. I'm not saying that. But maybe just not a huge, 50-yard touchdown like he's given up in the past with those double moves. But, overall, man, the whole team, I mean, Doug, the defense, Jim Schwartz, it's all been inconsistent all year. The offense, we saw some life last week. We got to find out if that's like the real thing. You know what I mean? If that's really, it was a good question that we had in the mailbag for later, but I'll bring it up now. It's like, is that running game with the quarterback sustainable? And I got my guy, Colvin22 here. He hit us with the Go Hurts comment. He's a Ravens fan, so he experiences that running mobile QB offense, that's built in that's their offense. That's what they're rolling with for now on until Lamar Jackson is out of Baltimore. So, is that type of offense sustainable? It
is sustainable for the Eagles to an extent because we have every show talks about the Eagles offensive line. What is it, 12 out of 13 games or 13 out of 14 games, a different offensive line.
Right.
The one key thing that this offensive line has been successful at is run blocking. They just don't run block, or they just don't have enough run plays, at least earlier in the season with, Carson Wentz. It was just a pass-happy offense. So, Jordan Mailata, Isaac Seumalo, these guys struggle pass blocking. They're bulldogs, though. They're dogs. They can block for the run and plow forward and open up those holes. And it's all about calling a game plan for what you've got. And I brought it up a couple weeks ago. The Ravens, I brought up on one of our shows. I put the box score up on the screen. This is how you game plan when you're a running team. And it was like 17 passes to like 37 rushes. Okay. And yes, some drives will be 3 and outs when you're running the ball nonstop like that. But you know what? If you stick to that game plan, let your Bulldogs up front, wear that defensive front down. I think the Cardinals are missing 1 or 2 of their starters. I mean, they get after the quarterback and all, but their defensive line's a little beat up and all.
Yeah.
You wear them down, Hurts, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, if you want to throw him into the mix, they're going to start breaking out big long runs and all on this team.
Yeah.
So it's sustainable if the offensive play caller, whoever it is, Doug Peterson, sticks to that type of a game plan. So,
yeah, and I think that's, a beautiful point. Similar to Baltimore, you also see it at Cleveland where they are they're committed and they know themselves. That's the problem with this team. We have no identity. We don't know who we are. And that's what it comes down to. You look at it, even the Browns game when they played us. They just kept stuffing us with the run. You know what I mean? They kept stuffing the run down our throats until it finally broke open with Nick Chubb, and that ended up winning them the game in that terrible weather. You know what I mean? So the difference even in that game was them sticking to the run and us not sticking to the run. We had a great first drive, fumble the football, and then we go pass happy. So
you just said a fumble right there, and that's a key right there. If you have a great running game, you have a great line that can block for the running game. Baltimore and Cleveland, they don't want, Lamar Jackson or Baker Mayfield making those stupid turnovers. So if you got somebody like Carson Wentz that's turning the ball over at uncharacteristic, rates,
right,
take the ball out, take the pressure off of him by doing the one thing that you do well. So now you got a rookie Jalen Hurts out there. He hasn't really had any turnovers or anything yet, but do you really want to get his confidence down? don't give him the opportunity to make those big mistakes by calling a running game, a run-happy game, designing run schemes that work for that, configuration of an offense and all. So you take the ball out of his hands, you take the mistakes away from him. They just didn't do that with Carson.
Yeah.
When Carson was on his 40th interception and 50th fumble, maybe it was time to dial back the 70 pass games. You know what I mean? But you do that. So.
Yeah, no, you're spot on there as well. So I guess that kind of plays out into, the next part of the show. Is it worth it to make the playoffs? Somehow we may fall into the playoff spot without even trying, without even deserving, obviously. Is it even worth it? I mean, obviously we could get young guys in there. You would get Jalen Hurts playoff experience. That's the other thing is if you get to the playoffs, you have to keep Jalen Hurts in, right? Like you cannot put Carson back out there in the playoffs. That's not fair to Jalen Hurts, and it makes zero sense. So you make the playoffs with Jalen Hurts, you get him experience. Anything can happen in the playoffs. That's kind of where we're at with the NFC. So it's kind of like, it's just toss up. But, as soon as you lock in that division win, you take yourself out of the top 15, basically, of draft picks, which, Howie, we were, iffy with the top 10 picks. So once we get back into the 15s and the 20s and, how are we feeling now? So is it worth it to make the playoffs, Phil?
Is it worth it? It's not worth trying. If you fall into it. So I've been pumping this idea even since before this, lethal 4-game stretch of games that to play the young guys on the offensive line, the young wide receiver, Alshon should be out there. Jalen Hurts should be out there.
Right.
Play the young guys. Kayvon Wallace is going to be forced into action now. He wasn't getting that playing time, when they should have given it to him. If you play all the young guys and you fall into the playoffs, great. Because like you said, it's playoff experience. Everybody needs playoff experience. Who knows what happens once you get to the playoffs? I mean, who do you think is the best team in the NFC right now?
We thought New Orleans was, and they just came out and lost to us. So I mean,
Green Bay struggled Green Bay struggled against Carolina last night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They let Teddy Bridgewater right back in that game.
And so they got blown out by Tampa Bay earlier in the year. So I mean,
once you get to the playoffs in the NFC, I've been saying this since week one. There's not one NFC team that is hands down above everybody else. Like in the AFC, it's Kansas City and everybody else. I can't imagine a person out there that isn't picking the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl right now or even win the Super Bowl right now. But in the NFC, it's wide open. So if you fall into it while getting your young guys experience and seeing what you have, great. Because like you said, we can't trust Howie to make that draft pick anyway.
Exactly.
But if you don't make the playoffs, there's not many people that will cry over it, I think, at this point this year.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the right way to say it. We all want to win. We all want to make the playoffs. But we're not going to be upset and like throwing and burning our jerseys because they missed the playoffs,
Exactly. I think if you would have told us at the beginning of the season that we would be in this position, maybe we would burn our jerseys then. But, after enduring all of this, throughout the season, it is what it is at this point.
I placed a bet on the Eagles making the Super Bowl. So, that wasn't a homer bet. I thought it was a possibility.
At that point, it's worth a shot, though, at least for you to get them in there. Maybe get some steam rolling, though. But, this kind of feeds into, I think this one's an obvious answer. If they make the playoffs, that will seal the deal for Carson. He's as good as gone. I don't know what it would take to get him gone. Him restructuring his contract, a team taking on the contract. Philly just eating the contract to get him out. I don't know what it would take, but at that point, you got to consider that this is two quarterbacks that come in after Carson and take the team to the playoffs.
So obviously, they make the playoffs. Yes, you're right. Seals the deal. He's got to go. But Sport Track, it's a great follow for. They do a lot of work on contracts and all the different leagues. They break them down, how it affects salary caps. They know all the ins and outs and all. So basically, they did a post today, and I was retweeting it at like 8:30 this morning. So I'm going to just read it off. Wentz has 4 years, $100 million basically left on his deal. But practically speaking, there's only 2 years and $47 million left. if they pay him the $10 million roster bonus in March and then trade him after June 1st, it means that there's only $30 million guaranteed that's going to hurt the cap. So it's not this untradeable contract as people think it is. I mean, yes, we get rid of him, we trade him, we find a partner after June 1st. We're going to have $25-30 million in dead cap space that we're going to have to deal with. But if you can get a second or some kind of pick package or player and pick package for him, especially young players and all, moving forward, you take that cap hit to move him on, because if Jalen Hurts makes the playoffs, even if Jalen Hurts misses the playoffs but plays really well, leading, towards the end, and just the injuries on defense, or who knows why we don't make the playoffs, you can't have Hurts and Wentz here next year. Yeah, because you can't have Wentz making $100 million as your backup all year. But if Hurts plays well, you can't put him back on the bench. So you're kind of stuck where you pretty much have to take a trade and take that cap hit right there.
Yeah, because otherwise you're going to deal with this all over again next season, and it's going to, even if it's the backwards thing, where Hurts starts out slow and then everybody wants to win, it would just never end. And
is there a scenario where Hurts plays well, makes the playoffs, or doesn't, and they trade Hurts and keep Wentz? Because I say they keep Hurts because he's younger and cheaper and all, and that's the kind of quarterback that the NFL is gearing towards right now.
He's also he would probably be the more wanted prospect as well. So I don't know. It depends on it would depend on the packages that you're getting for each of them. If you're taking offers on both, see what the best offer is at that point. I mean, I'm not sure which way I would go with that. Because you're basically I don't know if Hurts plays well down the stretch, you kind of
put you on one there,
Yeah, that's a good one, because I guess what my main thing is, if we go into next season and it's Doug Peterson at the head coach realm, and then you have then you still have Howie Roseman up in the general management spot. I just don't see it working out any better for Hurts. Like the incompetency and surrounding talent around Wentz, it just makes me think, if they couldn't surround talent around Wentz to fit Wentz, who I feel like Wentz has a better structure of talent with his arm. He's a better quarterback. So in my eyes there, I feel like they're just going to have even more trouble surrounding Jalen Hurts in an offense, with a dynamic piece like that, where he's going to need specific pieces to make him successful, including a number one wide receiver, just like every quarterback. So, maybe if Howie opens his eyes and all of a sudden, makes a move to get a number one wide receiver in this draft or in the offseason, whatever the move may be, then sure, that obviously putting more talent on the field around the quarterback is going to make them more successful. That's what it comes down to. But we got a couple comments coming in here. Are they using Hurts as trade bait? Yeah, exactly.
Brad knows how I think.
Yeah. Hey, it's a good point, man. It's something I wasn't thinking about, but stuff that I have been thinking about is different combos that I'm going to be comfortable with, bringing in next season. Like, what would I be happy with? And all of my combos are either Wentz or Hurts, and either Doug or you know what I mean? I don't want both.
Did you happen to catch the poll I ran this week on Twitter?
Yeah, I did see that.
I haven't brought it up on a show yet. I'll bring it up right now. I mean, I almost 290 votes. So, a pretty decent sample size of people voting on that. And if you look at it, it's pretty. So let me break this down. So what I did, everybody, I did a poll. I put four combos. Who would you be most, interested in having next year? Hurts and Roseman, Hurts and Peterson, Wentz and Roseman, Wentz and Peterson. So it's really funny because it's pretty close on the Hurts to Wentz. It's 56% want Hurts back, but 45% pick the Wentz combos. But the really interesting thing is 76% pick the Peterson with a quarterback being back next year, compared to 25% picking, Howie Roseman with a quarterback. So it's pretty clear cut that people want Howie Roseman out of here.
It's so crazy to me that our owner, I hate that Jeffrey Lurie is doing this, man, because, I look at him with a lot of respect. And he's just it's like he's willing to let Howie run this organization into the ground. And I mean, because we were doing a nosedive right now, and it's insane. It's insane that we can't at least just condemn him. You know what I mean? At least condemn him publicly. Let him know that he needs to make changes. No, we just keep backing him and supporting him and being good, good people. It's so annoying if we come back and we're doing the same thing. And now, of course, they leaked out the Dorsey, consulting.
Yeah.
Interesting, but Howie's still there. Howie's still the one. Like, why is this getting leaked out now that he's been working?
So when you hear about the Dorsey comments, the initial thing is maybe he's being brought in to coach Howie Roseman.
Yeah.
Where your mistakes are made. Listen to your smart people that you have around you, blah, blah, blah. But Dorsey wants to be a GM again. And he's had some down moments in his career, but he's had some – you look at some of the teams that he's picked and some of his draft, selections, he's had success. So if he was expecting to be a GM somewhere else next year, why would he give Howie Roseman all the secrets to this, to the trade? You better draft these people. What? But then he's going to go to another team, and he's not going to do that. You know what I mean? So where there's smoke, there's fire, in my opinion. And maybe Dorsey's brought in to take over for Howie. Maybe Dorsey is brought in like the Daryl Morey category.
Yeah.
Maybe they bring in Dorsey to be the president of operations, which the Eagles have never really had. And he's ahead of, Howie. He outranks Howie on final decisions. Howie's the de facto GM, but really isn't making – because is Elton Brand really making the picks in Philly for the Sixers right now? No. He's just, there. So maybe that's what they're doing with Dorsey there. And we can only hope because we can't have Howie making draft selections again. No matter who is the quarterback and all. And everyone says he's a cap wizard, but is he really a cap wizard if we're like what $70-80 million over the cap next year?
Right.
So there's 100 Harvard law students out there that could probably manage an NFL cap. So you get a real GM, and then you just get some business guy that can manage the numbers for you.
And, maybe that was Lurie's subtle way of, kind of letting the Eagles fans know, like, we are bringing in somebody else for help.
Yeah.
Like, we may not fire Howie, but at least we're bringing in help.
I mean, he won't stay on as a consultant. You would have to give him a pretty lofty title to stay here with Howie. And maybe Lurie realizes he's losing out on my guy, Louis Riddick. So Riddick had like 3 interviews this week.
Yeah,
so
as long as Howie's in the building, Louis Riddick isn't touching this place. Nope. So, he's beat with that if he's not getting rid of Howie. But, it's Howie, and it seems like he's just. It's always convenient when these stories come out, and it like helps him out. Like it's so played out. I'm so tired of it. But we'll have plenty of time in the offseason to talk about Howie and his decisions. Let's go ahead. We'll talk about the Cardinals this week. We hit on it earlier. Darius Slay is going to be out. Avonte Maddox is out. Rodney McLeod's out. We let Will Parks go. What do we expect today? I mean, it could be. I feel like we always get hit blindsided by these like ambushes of points, but this could really happen today if things go south quickly. So there's a couple ways I could see it playing out. Obviously, if our defensive line can get pressure, that's going to be key in keeping this thing together and keeping this a competitive game. And I think they can do that, but I think there's the other side of the scale where it could get out of hand quickly as well. They do have the weapons to do that, and if Kyler Murray is on his game, if he's running the football, getting out of that pocket and moving around on us, it could get deadly out there. How are you feeling? Do you feel like there's a legit chance this defense can hold in there and keep us in the game? Or is it going to be all
in there to an extent? They're gonna put up points on us. There's no doubt about it. It's up to the offense, I think, almost to save the defense to an extent. If you're running the ball, you're controlling the clock, you're keeping the Cardinals offense off the field as much as possible.
Right.
Then you got a shot. But the one guy everybody knows on any of the shows I've been on, this Heat Ratio, All About the Birds, every show I'm on, I've been trashing Jim Schwartz all season long. Before I did shows last year, I was trashing Jim Schwartz. But Jim Schwartz showed me something last week. These injuries that we talk about, the Darius Slay, the Avonte Maddox, all the Rodney McLeod, they all went out last week.
Yeah.
And that game could have easily got out of hand. He rallied the troops. He got the guys in the right position for a change. He got the front 4 or 5, putting pressure on the quarterback, contained Taysom Hill's running. So if Jim Schwartz can rally these guys, if he can get Josh Sweat, who's having a monster season, Vinny Curry, all these secondary pieces outside of Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave's come on, finally starting to play well in this team. If these guys can contain Kyler Murray in the box and not, like you said, be a running quarterback,
right?
If you only have to blitz or pressure with 4 or 5 guys, you got the rest of the guys to sit back there. And if Schwartz can design the right schemes to make this work, why not? Why not prove me wrong? I've been proven wrong this year of doing shows plenty of times. Okay? Prove me wrong again, Jim Schwartz. Find a way to, I almost think like if they can hold the Cardinals to 30-ish points, we could still win this game hypothetically. And I think like 30 points is almost a win, a mental win, a moral win. If you can put this team where it's at in the secondary, if you can hold them that 28, 31 points, that's doing a heck of a job right there.
Yeah. And, at the same time, we get to see some of these young guys in the secondary as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not excited to see Epps back there. That's not what I'm talking about. But guys like Kayvon Wallace, they get these guys some ample playing time and really seeing what they can do out there. They're going to be missing Rodney McLeod. And, this guy has been all over the field. I do love to shout him out anytime we talk about him on the show because he is, I'm not going to sit here and call him the most talented guy, but he plays hard as hell. And, he'll miss some plays, but he's always bringing the energy. He filled in that leadership role of Malcolm this year. And, you've seen him be in the backfield on a lot of plays, blowing up plays this year. I just wanted to shout him out, but that's a huge loss. You've kind of seen Alex Singleton doing that same thing, blowing up run plays. And if he can kind of keep his eyes on Kyler Murray and not let him, not get looked at, we saw it several times with Nate Jerry where he's following the receiver down the field and the quarterback runs straight behind him. So, keep your eyes on the quarterback. You got to keep your eyes on this guy. Make sure you know where he is at all times because he can sneak out there for a touchdown run from anywhere on the field. and it's going to be huge. So we've been burned by quarterbacks running this year, and that's no secret. Daniel Jones, Lamar Jackson, and Kyler Murray is right up there on that level. I would hate to play a guy like Josh Allen right now. Seriously.
Dude's on fire right now.
God.
You bring up an interesting thing with Kayvon Wallace and how much you love Rodney McLeod and all. So when Kayvon Wallace up to this point has gotten on the field, remember on your preseason show, I picked Kayvon Wallace to be the defensive rookie of the year on this team. I really thought he was, by week 4, was going to be a starter on this team because it was the one draft pick that I really, truly loved that, Howie made.
Right.
Kayvon Wallace has been playing when he's out there with Rodney McLeod out there.
Right.
He's more of a Rodney McLeod type. He plays in the box. He can blitz. He can stop the run. He can guard that slot. He's a smaller Malcolm Jenkins, Rodney McLeod type guy. He's not a free safety, stand back there, read the quarterback's eyes and whatever. He's more of a physical type player.
Right.
So him being out there now, he can play the type of role he's more meant to play. And I always talk about, Schwartz putting the wrong guys, round pegs, square holes kind of thing. You can actually put Kayvon Wallace and see what you have in him. Like, of course, I don't want to see Rodney McLeod out or anything like that. Right. But with him out, you can actually see what he has. Yeah, doing what he's meant to do on the field. So,
yeah, no, that's a perfect point because he is a guy that likes to get up there and play the run, just like Rodney. We've been missing kind of that just free safety guy, back there being a ball hawk. We're still looking for that guy. They tried to put Jalen Mills back there. They've tried different things. It's not working out. The one guy they really haven't tried too thoroughly was Avonte Maddox. Of course, he's out. This would have been a good game to maybe even see him back there at that safety role. But obviously that's not possible. If you could pick one of the Cardinals' weapons today that you think is going to go off on the Eagles, just gut feeling, who do you think it's going to be?
Larry Fitzgerald. For some reason, he just kills the Eagles all the time.
Yeah.
I'm an old head. He's been killing the Eagles. What's he been in the league? 15 years now? He has killed us so many times. So I actually have a feeling, just like you said earlier, the type of player that DeAndre Hopkins is, he's not going to put the double moves on Mills and burn him for those 50-yard touchdowns. So I think we can contain DeAndre Hopkins. It's the Larry Fitzgerald in that slot. Who's going to guard him? Coleman's been terrible in the slot. So is Seymour going to cover him? I don't know. I can see Larry Fitzgerald getting open on a slant route over the middle. I think his over-under was like 25 receiving yards. I put that on my same-game parlay too today on the over there. I think Larry Fitzgerald gets 70, 80, 100 yards receiving today. He's going to be Larry Fitzgerald of old feasting on this team.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it was 29.5 yards is his over-under, and I took the over all day on that with Larry Fitzgerald.
I mean, that's actually a funny one because I was thinking along the same lines. I'd almost forgot that Larry Fitzgerald was on the team because, they've obviously, caught on to these young guys, DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler, Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk's a great young wide receiver.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So he's another one that I could see kind of really burning us because he's more of like that athletic freak, type of guy. So it could be any one of them. It could be Kenyon Drake. You just never know. We have been decent against the run lately, I suppose, but catching the ball out of the backfield, that type of stuff could kill us. But yeah, Christian Kirk, Larry Fitzgerald, I'm looking for those guys. Even guy like Isabella they got out there. He's another talented young guy.
And we always have problems with the tight end. What's his name? Arnold?
Yep. So I mean, there's a lot of options there. It is worrisome, but I think we're like conditioned for this because we've been through this. It's not a big deal if we get blown out today. I mean, it's not a huge deal. Obviously, we feel like we could win, but it's not a huge deal. I guess, keys to success today. What are you feeling like the Eagles need to do? We kind of have already justified that throughout the show. I think, running the football, being committed, find your identity today, get pressure on Kyler Murray, contain Kyler Murray, keep eyes on Kyler Murray, know where he's at, know where he's going. Other than that, what are you?
I'm going on the other side of the ball. I think it's the front 4/5. If Alex Singleton's going to be that spy or Kayvon Wallace, whoever it is, if you can get pressure and contain Kyler Murray in the backfield, which is 4 guys, sometimes that 5th spy, then you can have that 5 or 6 other guys dropping back in coverage. I mean, Kyler Murray could beat us with his legs, but I think Kyler Murray, if the Cardinals go off for 35, 40, 45 points, it's going to be because Kyler Murray is picking apart our secondary. Yeah. The way you stop that is by getting pressure on Kyler, contain him in that pocket, get hands up, bat at balls, and that kind of stuff.
That's a huge one.
Yeah. So the Jim Schwartz front 4 and that scheme on the defense, that's the key to success today, big time, in my opinion. Yeah.
And then on the other side of the ball, Jalen Hurts is just going to have to make some throws today. Some risky throws, I feel like. He's going to have to put some balls, in tight spaces today in order to win the game. That's to win. Now, if we play safe, we may be able to stay in the game. But, you're going to have to take risks against an opposing offense that we're playing today that is very explosive. We'll move on to the rest of the NFC East. So, obviously, depending how the rest of the NFC East plays out determines if we can even make the playoffs, even if we win out. We obviously need Washington to lose to Seattle. They play the Panthers next week, I believe, before they play us. They could beat the Panthers even without, Alex Smith, if they did have to go without him. So I do, think if we really want a shot at making the playoffs, I would say that, we got to hope that Seattle beats Washington today. You got Cleveland and New York Giants, and then you got Dallas and San Fran. New York without their quarterback, without Daniel Jones, I think they should lose to Cleveland. We've seen crazier shit this year. So,
Cleveland, as great as Cleveland's been, would you be surprised if Baker Mayfield threw a clunker out there today?
It could be, yeah. The NFL's been this year. Yeah. It's 2020. It can happen. So how are you feeling on it? We can go through each game, kind of just make our picks here.
I mean, obviously, I think all three. I think the team with the best chance of winning a game today is the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a chance all four teams, obviously, the division's going to go 0-4 today. The Giants, I can't pick the Giants to win, even if Baker Mayfield throws a clunker. I mean, can you really think Colt McCoy is going to beat that Browns defense? The Browns defense is a lot better than people give it credit for. Yeah. And, I just can't see that there happening. Washington without Alex Smith, is there anybody that thinks Dwayne Haskins is an NFL quarterback at this point? And Antonio Gibson's still out, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's still out today.
So you're taking away their best running back and their leader of a quarterback. Seattle should be able to put up a lot of points in that game, even though Washington's defense is pretty good. And Dallas, Dallas stinks. I think they're just as much as anybody else in tank mode to an extent, Yeah.
They
know they're not going anywhere. They're in the same boat as the Eagles. Are you upset if we don't make the playoffs? If you backdoor fall in it, whatever. I don't really think it matters at this point. So, I could see all four teams losing, but I'm pretty confident saying that the three other East teams are all going to lose today.
Yeah. And I can kind of, I kind of get that sense as well. Obviously, if you were to make a pick of an NFC East team, you would kind of be going against the odds there, the obvious odds, I should say. But we'll kind of finish out there. The Eagles need Washington to lose a game. I believe we need New York to lose a game as well before. We need New York to lose a game, or do we need them to lose two games?
Now, Washington and New York has to lose one game only.
One game only, and then we have to beat Washington to get in the playoffs. So, and win our other games as well.
We have to win.
So that's where we stand with that. Does it really matter? Not really. So,
and honestly, I think if I remember correctly, Washington only has to lose one game, which could be the game against us. So as long as we win out, I think we're pretty much in the driver's seat at that point because
we win out. Yeah. With the especially with that tie, that I know that's like
tie could come back to save us.
Craziness. It's ridiculous.
2020.
So we'll finish up with some mailbag questions here. Just kind of got some questions from around the league, some with the Eagles, some not. I did catch one earlier in the show. They actually sent these comments in during the live show from the Q&E podcast. Shout out to them. Their podcast is very dope. They asked us Micah Parsons or Jamar Chase for the draft pick. This is actually an easy one for me at this point.
Easy for me.
I'm going
to. We're on the same page.
I hope. I'm going Jamar Chase here because no, because Micah Parsons, he put that Dallas Cowboys story up on there. He can't wait to play in the blue and white in the NFL. No, I can't do it, man. If we draft him, I'm not gonna be angry. Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna sit there and hold that against him. But overall, I wouldn't be mad if we drafted either of them. They're both supreme talents. Obviously, Micah Parsons is is a position that we really lack. But I'll let you go ahead and
it's a pretty easy. If we have a chance to draft both of them, and Howie Roseman is making the pick, Jamar Chase is going to be the pick.
Yeah.
But we've been so in need of a stud linebacker for so long.
I know.
How can you not take somebody like Micah Parsons? He literally makes your defense instantly so much better. He'll make the defensive line better. He'll make the secondary better. And I don't know. I'll let you talk about Jamar Chase if you want, but
everybody knows about Jamar Chase. I mean, this guy's a stud. He's going to be he should be the number one wide receiver. There's some guys that are coming up behind him now. I know the Devontae Smith hype train has been going hard. So, it really depends where we are in the draft.
And also, do we really want to become Detroit and just be drafting a first-round wide receiver every single year? We just wasted a first-round pick on not wasted, because Rager might be something. That's another whole topic and all. Yeah. But you can't spend 2 straight first-round picks on wide receivers. You just can't.
I don't know, man. I would consider it at least. It depends for me. Like, if Micah Parsons is there, based off of need, I think he is the most needed, as far as that early draft talent right there. Patrick Surtain, he's another one that would be a really good pick there as well, at the cornerback position to solidify that beside Darius Slay, and kind of have just like his protege coming up behind him, his apprentice. So that would be interesting as well. But it kind of depends how the draft plays out. There's a couple teams in that top 10 area where you just really don't know. Like, they could just draft out of best talent available. So,
and then you always have those teams that want to jump up for a quarterback.
Yeah.
Whether outside of Trevor Lawrence, if you believe in any of the other quarterbacks, I mean, that's debatable for a draft show and all. But there's always those 2 or 3 teams that are jumping up just to get a quarterback. Yeah. And that makes everybody else fall down the board a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's true too. So, it depends how our cards are dealt. But if Howie's the GM, I just don't see us taking a linebacker in the first round. He obviously doesn't value the position. So we'll see. I think it is one of those. If Micah Parsons is there, most likely where we'll be at, Jamar Chase probably won't be there. So that's kind of why I'm like, probably more realistically, Micah Parsons.
Chase, I think, could be a top 5 pick. Personally.
Yeah. He's
it'll be at this point now. It's pretty hard for us to get that 5th pick.
Yeah, exactly. We would have to totally shoot ourselves in the foot the rest of the season. But the next question was from my buddy Mark Loud All Wild on Twitter. Who in the AFC has the best shot to beat the Kansas City Chiefs? There's a few answers that I could go with. Do I believe in any of them? Maybe the Steelers, maybe the Bills. The Bills have looked good. Josh Allen is hot. The Titans, they're picking up steam right now with Derrick Henry. What do you think, Phil? I mean, it's Kansas City. They're.
I don't know. Can I take Pittsburgh's defense? Can I take Pittsburgh's defense and Buffalo's offense and put them together?
That would make it work.
Because I think Pittsburgh could be a one and done team in the playoffs. So personally, I haven't bought the Pittsburgh hype all year, even when they were 11-0. I was just waiting for that team to lose. I just didn't think their offense is really well put together. Ben Roethlisberger at his age throwing the ball 38, 50, 100 times a game, whatever it is. Josh Allen and the Bills, if they can keep playing like this, I guess they could push it. And, they play in the cold weather in Buffalo, so going to Kansas City, that won't be an issue. But Buffalo's defense has given up some points this year. So, that would come to Josh Allen having to outscore Patrick Mahomes. Can he do it? Possibly. They've built a hell of a team up there in Buffalo. My second choice after Louis Riddick is whoever the assistant GM is in Buffalo. Just go get him to get it, because they're building a team the right way, getting wide receivers, getting an offensive line in a running game, and just supporting their quarterback. But maybe even Tennessee. Maybe they played pretty well in the playoffs last year. Ryan Tannehill's a good game manager, but no, I don't think anybody beats Kansas City. I think Kansas City repeats. Quite frankly, I don't think anyone beats them.
Yeah, I think it would be foolish to pick anybody over Kansas City. As far as there's obviously teams that can beat them on any given Sunday, but
Miami almost beat them last week.
Right. So there are teams there, but Kansas City is clear favorites in my eyes. I feel like they've just been coasting. Aside from the Las Vegas games, they've been coasting. Mm-hmm. Got another question here from Larry Legend NS on Twitter. Who has been the best player on the Eagles defense this season?
Best.
The best. So that's a very vague word.
Yeah.
Depends which way you want to go. You want to go first here, or you want me to go first?
See, I'm getting these questions on the spot. I didn't get a pre-vet of these questions. I got to think off the top of my head. I mean, I would say the best, I'll answer in a second. The most surprising is Josh Sweat.
Yeah.
But he's still only playing a part-time role. I would say Rodney McLeod has been up to this point because he hasn't, this is going to be the first game he missed. I think this team is even worse off at, what are we, 4-8-1 at this point? We might only have 1 or 2 wins if Rodney McLeod's not holding that team together a little bit on the defense end. It'd be really close between McLeod and Brandon Graham, but I'd probably go Rodney McLeod as the best player on the defense at this point. Obviously, he's now out for the year. That might change now the rest of the year. But at this point in the season, McLeod.
Yeah, and he was kind of that key guy, that leader on the defense, the glue guy, like you said. Definitely has been my favorite player on the defense this year. He's definitely up there as the best player. Like you said, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat has been amazing, but also streaky. As far as Darius Slay would have been right there for me. He has had a tough stretch, and it's not his fault. I don't mean it, to diss him. It's really just the matchups that he's had to go against.
Yeah, you take any of the top 3 cornerbacks in the league, and you give them the streak of wide receivers that he's had to face. I mean, that's a murderer's row of number 1 wide receivers he faced right in a row there. So
to say the least, yeah. So I think Darius Slay is another guy that's in the conversation. But yeah, it's those guys right there. They've been the glue. They've been the guys that kept this defense together. Alex Singleton has made a strong push, down the stretch of this season.
He's got to work on his pass coverage a little bit. When he's got to go out there on tight end, he gets turned around really easily. When they're doing a zone, he loses his spot a little bit. But running game, and containing a quarterback, he's already there, in my opinion. I mean, he can get better, but he's getting there really well. So I would love to see a lot more of him in the next couple of weeks. And again, take that step forward, as I say, each game here, see that positive step forward from these young guys.
Yeah, exactly. And, he would probably be more in that category as Sweat, the most surprising and just an up-and-coming player. But, Brandon Graham or Rodney McLeod, I think we could agree there. That's probably a good spot. Got our guy from All About the Birds, Dave GFC Miller, on Twitter. If you had to pick one dark horse in both conferences for the playoffs, who would you pick? I'll go first here. I'll give you some time to ponder on that. AFC, I guess my dark horse, you can't pick Buffalo anymore. They're a pretty hot team. I would probably go with Tennessee. I think they have the groundwork, the fundamentals, the foundation with Derrick Henry in the run game. You got a general manager, a game manager, I should say, at quarterback who knows how to run the offense and make the right throws. And their defense is pretty stout. They got a nice pass rush there. So that would be my dark horse team. Like we said earlier, Kansas City is the team in the AFC. But that would probably be my team there. In the NFC, this one's a little tougher just because it is so there's no
everybody's a dark horse at this point.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to pick a dark horse if everybody's a dark horse. I guess, I'll go the Bucks, with Tom Brady and that defense, if they can continue to stop the run like they've done. And if that pass rush can come around, they can get the secondary together down there. And get those receivers involved. I don't know what the hell's going on with that offense. It seems like they're always trying to go down the field with Tom Brady when all you have to do is just run a simple offense. You can run crossing routes. You got great talent at the wide receiver position. You don't have to go down the field every single time. So I think that would be my dark horse, the Bucks maybe. But every team in the NFC is a dark horse at this point.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go out on a limb for my dark horse in the AFC and in the NFC, I guess, to an extent. But I'm going to be called a homer for that one. I'm going to go the Cleveland Browns as a dark horse candidate. I like the team. I think they make the playoffs. One of the things that wins in the playoffs is great running games. And they've got two of the best running backs in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. You know, they have a really, really underrated defense, with Myles Garrett and all those other great guys on that defense. Once you get to the playoffs, who knows? Baker Mayfield really hasn't had playoff experience yet, so we don't know what he's going to be like in the playoffs. But as long as Stefanski keeps calling the proper game plans, they could definitely they're definitely a scary team heading into the playoffs as a dark horse. Again, I still think it's Kansas City, hands down. But who's to say Cleveland doesn't? Anybody can lose on any or beat any other team. Yeah. So we'll go Cleveland, and so I'll say the Eagles. Yeah. I'll say so. I don't sound like a homer. I don't want to sound like a homer. I'll say the NFC East is the dark horse. The Eagles, if they make it, that means they got really hot. Doug Peterson has done weirder things and lead teams to the playoffs. We've had some awful teams led to the playoffs the last couple of years. Washington has an amazing defense, so who's to say if they don't back in and Alex Smith's a great game manager and all, it would be a great story. The Giants, I don't really have anything positive to say, but maybe Daniel Jones runs all over somebody. I don't know.
You never know.
Dallas isn't going to make the playoffs. I think they're the last place team in the division.
Yeah.
But you get a home field. If you win your division, you get a home field game. Who's going to want to come to Philly if we win out, end up 7-8-1? Who's going to want to come to Philly and face Jalen Hurts if this team is clicking on all cylinders? Nobody.
As crazy as it sounds, it wouldn't. It's not something that you would.
Weird. I would love to know if anybody bet on a Cleveland Browns Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl as their prediction. I would love to see that bet that ticket from the bookie at all, because that's one combo I never thought I'd see.
See, and I can see the Cleveland pick just for the same reasons I picked Tennessee there. The running game. You got a quarterback that can get some things done. He's mobile. He can get out of the pocket. And then you got a pretty sturdy defense on the other side, so they can play with anybody, but they can lose anybody. They can probably beat anybody. So they're one of those teams. And so I can definitely get down with you on that end. And then, it comes down to the NFC is not that great. We have stayed with the best of the best teams in the NFC. I think the Rams.
We stayed with Baltimore and Pittsburgh too.
Yeah,
two of the best in the AFC. So
the Rams game got out of hand, and then I guess down the stretch, the Green Bay game got to the point where we had to bench our quarterback. So that didn't go well. But aside from that, Seattle wasn't a crazy blowout game. We just beat the Saints, so. We've competed with some of the better teams in the NFL, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Obviously, Washington is in the same boat. If they could get a guy like Alex Smith back, or get somebody back by the playoffs and get somebody to man that quarterback position, just even averagely, then they will they would be good to go with that defense. That defense could shut down almost anybody and get pressure on almost anyone. Mm-hmm. So I think you're spot on with those picks. So this was actually a question from you that you had for me from earlier in the week, and it was about Josh Sweat and Travis Fulgham. So both have had several really good games, some games that they disappeared. Who is more likely to be a force going forward?
I do remember that now. Yeah,
that was a great question, and I feel like the answer is obvious to me, but it may not be to some other people. I think Josh Sweat is the obvious answer there. Fulgham, it worries me that he's disappeared like this. Whether it's Doug, not giving snaps. Why are they so comfortable? If he's looking good and getting separation at practice, if he's running crisp routes. You wouldn't have that much confidence to put Alshon in, right? But, we've seen crazier shit, so I can't say that.
This is not Travis Fulgham's first rodeo. He's been cut. He's been practice squad cut by multiple teams. We all got super hyped over Travis Fulgham.
He did. Way too
You just said separation. He doesn't get separation.
Yeah.
He ran crisp routes, but he doesn't know how to adjust the route. Now the defense has tape on him, and we talked about was Jalen Hurts. Cardinals have tape on Jalen Hurts now. How will he adjust? Travis Fulgham, there's finally tape on him. Defense has figured it out. He made zero adjustments to his game. Exactly. So I think it's obvious that Josh Sweat, and also I don't want to say it's easy. when you're a blitz guy, a blitz specialist, you know, I don't know. It's a little easier just, you know, to maintain that, you know. So even Mike Mamula, you know, average 6-7 sacks a season. So when you're a blitz specialist, it's not like the defense or the offense can scheme against you. You're just bull rushing at the quarterback all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I overhyped Travis Fulgham. We had a Travis Fulgham T-shirt made up, and it was a total bust. You know, I'm over that one.
And see, I guess, that you made a good point there. I think another notable point to be made about this situation is that, Josh Sweat is turning it on at the end of the season, whereas Travis Fulgham was, towards the beginning in the middle. So he kind of has cooled down. He's lost his hype. So, it's going to be a full-out competition at that wide receiver position. J-Jaw doesn't know. He could be cut this offseason. I mean, Travis Fulgham could be cut. It's not out of the realm of possibilities to be that he could be cut. An expense to keep a guy like Greg Ward. Another season with Greg Ward, it will happen because he's unfortunately been one of our most consistent receivers.
He catches the ball. He catches
the football.
He's like last in the league out of like 6,000 wide receivers in separation yardage. That's a new stat I've been seeing lately. Everybody talks about separation yardage per route. And I never heard that stat before like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And everybody's talking about it. And Greg Ward doesn't even get yardage. He gets inches in separation. But he catches it for 2 yards.
2 yards a catch.
And he's an awful punt returner. I don't want to change the subject.
Punt returner.
He's our punt returning specialist, and he's awful. How do you back there for 1? And what did he do?
How do you return a punt for a touchdown and you get benched for the punt return the next game? I did not understand that at all. Maybe they're trying to keep it for a surprise or something. I don't know. But Rager's going to be in a competition next year. It's going to be full blown competition. They're going to bring in some new guys, I'm sure. Whether they draft one in the first round, they'll definitely draft one in the later rounds. So there's going to be some competition. And, you mentioned Hightower and Watkins as well. Those guys are going to be right in there. So Travis Fulgham's going to have to earn his spot. And, I don't think Josh Sweat has that same feeling where I think we saw Josh Sweat's coming out party this year. Yeah. And I think he's good to go moving forward. Obviously, you just got to be consistent. If he disappears early next season, he could lose his job within the first couple of weeks. So it's all based on the future. We don't know just yet, but I would place my odds more for Josh Sweat there.
Agreed.
Got another question from Luke Sawhook on Twitter. Do you ever see Wentz going back to starting? This is a vague question. Starting easily, yes. Starting for the Eagles, I don't know. That's a more tricky situation. That's more to be seen there in order to diagnose that. But as far as starting for another team, easily, yes. I think he's an NFL starting quarterback. Absolutely. This is the only season that points to him not being a qualified NFL quarterback. The rest of his career, he's been good to great. So, I see him starting, if not here, in other places.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't even have it. You summed it up exactly how it should be said.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty easy one. Another one from my buddy at Colvin22. Is the Washington football team a good QB away from being legit contenders? Yeah.
They are.
Yeah,
you got a stud running back. You got a stud wide receiver. The underappreciated stud on that team that they're developing, Logan Thomas, their tight end.
I was letting you have that one because I knew you were going to say it.
The dude has legitimate stud tight end written all over him. They got one of the best defensive front fours in all of football.
Yeah.
That team is you put a real quarterback on that team. I mean, I can name 10 different quarterbacks, 12 different quarterbacks that would make them Super Bowl contenders right now.
Right now. Yeah. It's crazy. And I think they're more inclined to go the route of just bringing in, like another veteran quarterback that's available.
If they weren't a division rival, that would be a team that Carson Wentz could go to hypothetically.
Yeah, exactly. they've placed weapons there. They just don't have the quarterback. They thought Dwayne Haskins was going to be the guy. He wasn't.
What Ohio State quarterback has ever succeeded in the NFL?
They usually go into other positions.
I'm so scared of Justin Fields this year coming out,
So, yeah, I think, even if they just had like a guy like Daniel Jones back there right now, if they drafted him instead of Haskins. Well, I guess Haskins fell to them, so Daniel Jones went before Haskins. But I guess if roles were reversed, I should say Daniel Jones would be a great fit with that offense as well.
Here's a hypothetical. He's still playing half decent this year. Everybody talks about it, and I don't think it's as clear-cut and dry as most people do. Carson goes to the Colts, right? Well, Phillip Rivers is still playing pretty well. A guy like Phillip Rivers, the way he's playing this year, you put him on Washington, they're the division favorite next year.
Yeah. With those type of weapons around him and go-to guys, I mean,
he loves tight ends.
You have a go-to guy at every level in the skill positions on offense. You have Terry McLaurin, you have Logan Thomas, and then you have Gibson and McKissick, who's great in the passing game. So,
absolutely,
it's crazy that Washington has weapons. Like, what? How did we get here as Eagles fans? I don't get it. But
everybody talks about how bad Washington's front office and ownership is and all. But you know what? They went out and got Riverboat Ron, and I said before the season that was the best coaching hire out of all the new coaches across the league. Riverboat Ron is a great coach. He just went down with the ship. He kind of had that Andy Reid, flame out with the Eagles. You know what I mean? It was time to move on. It was a hell of a coaching hire right there, and he is developing and building a culture and a team. And it's going to be scary going forward if they figure that quarterback thing out.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. That defense is scary. That defensive line is terrifying. So we got one last question here from Anytime 570. What happens when Hurts is figured out like most running QBs eventually do, a la Lamar Jackson? What happens when Hurts is figured out? We ran for over 200 rushing yards last week. What happens when everybody starts to, pack the box, 8 men, 9 men up in the box? What happens then, Phil?
Well, if you look at his college numbers, he rushed last year at Oklahoma for 1,200 some yards and all those touchdowns, but he also threw for almost 3,900 yards and completed 70% of his passes. So the guy's no slouch slinging the football. He can throw the football. He needs wide receivers that can catch the ball, and he needs the line to give him the time to throw the ball. But the guy can throw the football. And everybody knows I'm a big Carson Wentz guy, and I've been praising him all year and all offseason and all. But I'm just as big of a Jalen Hurts fan, and I've always loved his game and his skill set. I think if you look at him and Kyler Murray, and you just put those two because they're the ones playing together, I think Jalen Hurts is a better passing quarterback potentially than Kyler Murray is.
Yeah.
I think Kyler Murray is harder. It's harder for him to, when that running game is taken away, to just stand in the pocket and sling it. I think Jalen Hurts can do that. So, he's just got to have the weapons to throw to.
Yeah, and you're spot on there. I think, we said it earlier in the show. I think this game today is going to be one of those games where we see him forced to throw the ball. And, I think we were all upset, subliminally or subconsciously when they drafted Hurts because we did like him. You know what I mean? Because we know he is talented. And he's not going to be sitting behind somebody for a long time. We're not idiots. You know what I mean? So I think that was kind of some of the, the animosity and the hate of that pick was that you guys are telling us you're going to use him as a backup quarterback, as a gadget guy. But we know this guy is highly sought after to an extent. Obviously, he wasn't a first-round pick. But there's a ton of teams that I'm sure would have loved to have him. Pittsburgh, ready to go whenever Big Ben's done. There's a ton of teams like that would have loved to have Jalen Hurts as their guy for the future solidified. And I think that was the scariest part. You're just scared for Carson Wentz because you see him going down that road of playing bad, and it's only a matter of time because this guy, Jalen Hurts, when you're playing that bad as Carson Wentz, he deserves a shot. He's shown talent. So I think we find out about Jalen Hurts in the passing game today. I think they're going to pack the box. They're going to make those adjustments. like Phil said, they got the tape on Jalen Hurts finally.
It's not so. If he threw for 2,000 yards last year and completed 70%, you could say, well, he was just dumping the ball off and it was more of a running attack. If you have almost 4,000 passing yards and you're still completing 70% of your passes, you don't just luck into that. You've got to be taking shots downfield, longer out. That's just not something you fall into, like the NFC East title you can fall into. So I have all the confidence that he can throw the ball. If you're watching the game today, people, and you see him making balls or making passes, and his completion percentage isn't really high, look at the wide receivers. Are they getting the separation? Are they dropping the balls? As long as the balls are on target where they're supposed to be, the end results won't bother me as much. I just want to see him making the right reads and putting the ball where it needs to be. And then we'll judge what the wide receivers and tight ends and stuff like that are doing separately.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll see it today. I guess we can kind of finish off the show today with our predictions for the game. How are you feeling about the Cardinals and Eagles today? Where are you going with this one?
Well, I had originally on the All About the Birds show earlier in the week, I had the Cardinals winning 24-23, but that was before all these guys got ruled out on defense. There was still a shot of Slay playing and whatnot. Like, I don't have the Eagles winning. They're not going to win. I adjusted the score a little bit because I think it's going to be a higher score shootout. I'm going 34-27 Cardinals. It's going to be a close game. I really do think so. And I know 7 points doesn't sound close to some, but I mean, I think they're going to be right there in it the entire time. I just think eventually the defense is going to break a little bit, and they're going to hang in there, the defense, and then it's going to be too much for them to overcome.
Yeah, in Arizona, it's going to be a tough one, and it's going to be up tempo. It's going to be fast, and I think we need to get ready for that as fans as well, because the Cardinals, they can score quickly, and we may see that today. I will go ahead. I made my pick on Friday night on my buddy El Parcero Phillies show, and I said 31-27 the Birds, and well, I shouldn't say the Birds.
Which bird? Which bird?
My bad there. So I went 31-27 Eagles, and obviously, I don't know, Darius Slay's not out there. You wonder where the leadership's going to stem back from the defensive line. I know Fletcher and Brandon Graham are those guys on that defensive line that leads the defense. But, who's going to be the commander in the secondary? It's going to be Jalen Mills, I'm assuming. But, how's he going to handle it? We've seen inconsistent play from him. So, you can't have the highest confidence in him, although he does have it in himself. Has there
ever been a player that's had so much confidence and been so mediocre?
I don't know, man.
He's one of the 5 greatest.
Yeah. Especially not in Philly, man. I don't know. But I'll stick with my pick. I'll be a homer, whatever. I've seen crazier shit this year. So 31-27 Eagles. We'll stick with that one. How you feeling? We'll end the show on this note, Phil. Are the Eagles making the playoffs?
Sure. Why not? I want my bet to hit. My Eagles. No, yeah. I still feel there's a better than 50% chance that they make the playoffs. Basically, like we've said all show long, falling into it, backdooring into it. Even if they lose today, as long as Washington and the Giants lose today, they still are in it. They're the best of the worst bunch still, probably, in my mind.
Yeah. So Jalen Hurts will get his first division title in his rookie year.
2020. What? It's 2020. Why the hell not?
It's amazing. And then he'll host his first home playoff game. And watch. He'll already have that over Carson. Watch. It's going to happen. It's going to happen, man. Yeah. But everybody, thanks for tuning in. It was a great show with my man Phil. Always entertaining, always good talk. Enjoy the NFL Sunday. We got the Big Birds matchup.
That's right.
At 4:30, I believe it is, over in Arizona.
For something.
Yeah, for something, because they never start on time anyways. But enjoy NFL Sunday, fantasy football. Hope you cash in on all your bets. And that's going to be it for the show today, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to subscribe and like to the channel. Love you guys. Thanks for listening.